but it may have to be done several times. Protect yourself with light and love. The dark forces try to attack us. The one thing they seek in us is fear. Fear is their ally. If you surround yourself with love and light and do not become afraid, then you will build up a degree of protection, but it will take time, and you must go about it in a very thorough way. Well, you've got a guide. You've got a guide. It's a matter of whether you are in close enough contact. This is a complex subject, but I'll just touch briefly on it. You're going through an experience which is trying to tell you something, and you can take two paths. You can follow the path of curiosity, in which case it will lead you into more and more difficulty. Or you can go along the path of self-discipline and try diligently to protect yourself and come out of that. And then be content for the time being and content to wait until any psychic capacities you have blossom of themselves. But that may mean going through a lot of life experience. I was 50 odd before it happened to me. That's a long time to wait. Sometimes it happens early, sometimes late. But protect yourself. Don't go into these things out of idle curiosity. Dangerous. I think a lot of people in psychiatric hospitals are suffering from some degree of possession, and some psychiatrists are beginning to come to the same conclusion. And it has been suggested by one or two that they ought really, when they're examining people and have some doubts on this matter, get a good clairvoyant with them, have a good clairvoyant with them, to really sort of suss out what the situation is. Let me tell you a case where some form of possession had a very dramatic effect. I was at the College of Psychic Studies one afternoon, and the president said that a woman had called and was coming back, and she was suffering from agonizing pain in the head and neck, had been in this state for some 7 years, and she'd been to many countries trying to find some relief for this. She tried all sorts of medical approaches, none of which had worked. And she was very, very desperate. Listening to this, I thought, well, I don't suppose I'm going to have any luck with her either. But when she turned up, I sat with her and became aware of another man with her. And to cut a long story short, this man was closely attached to her. She'd nursed him through terminal cancer. He died of a tumour on the brain. And in the terminal stages of his life, lost consciousness. He became separated from the body and found himself hovering above the body, unable to leave it and unable to get back into it. He was very angry, and she was nursing him, and I think there was some degree of affection between them. When he died, not unnaturally attached himself to her, and he said, every time I left her I went out into the darkness. Well, I went through all this with him, the old catharsis. I had the pains that he had and the pains which she was getting. What he was doing, he was reliving the agony of his last period of life, and he was transferring it to her. So she was feeling these pains very real, in a very real fashion. And I went through with him, got him to leave her, released him to another level, which he should have been at a long time ago. And the pain went just like that. And she rushed out saying, he's done a miracle, he's done a miracle. Well, I hadn't done a miracle, I'd just done something which was purely logical. It was absolutely logical. I could see the reason why it had happened and what to do to stop it. That can happen. That's an actual instance of, and she's not had the pain, by the way, since. I've been in touch with her on and off for the last 4 to 5 years since it happened, and I know that she's okay now. I'm always willing to talk to people about this because I think it's a good thing to sow seeds. It might help people not to get stuck. One of the worst cases being stuck, and is one that has been met, I think, by others, was a woman who died in 1880 named Maud. Again, this was verified. She was taught the doctrine of the spirit going to sleep at death and not waking up until the day of judgment. The last trumpet shall sound. This was taught very widely in the last century and still is by some churchmen. I think it's taught by the Plymouth Brethren. It's a very dangerous doctrine. I went through this woman's experience, the catharsis again. When she died, she went down the tunnel. You've heard of this, haven't you? The tunnel that, they emerge in the light at the far end. She emerged in pitch blackness. She went down the tunnel into a black void. This was her mind committing her to this. The mind is so powerful. And I was told at the end of this, having released her, instead I did this release on the train going from Newark to King's Cross. So it can happen in some funny places. But having released her, I was told, observe the power of the mind. It can pin the soul down in place and time at one extreme, and at the other it can encompass the universe.